a word of appreciation for attending this thematic session in the context of the Council. We know that there are numerous temptations all around us, which is distinctive for this incredible destination. But this reflects really the relevance, the interest, the meaningfulness of the theme that we will be discussing during this morning over 4 very specific sessions. New narratives around tourism. Nuevas narrativas justamente como corolario del desarrollo y la nueva visibilidad que el turismo está disfrutando en estos tiempos que estamos viviendo. Nos honra que nos acompañe el ministro de Turismo, nuestro anfitrión en estos días aquí, el señor David Collado, a quien tengo el honor de invitar a que pronuncie sus palabras de apertura y bienvenida. Ministro, muchas gracias.
Muy buenos días a todos. La verdad es que no sabía que tenía palabras hoy. Excelentísimo señor Surat Polilikashvili, secretario general de la Organización Mundial del Turismo, Su Excelencia, ministro de Turismo y jefe de delegaciones aquí presente, embajadores, honorable señor Aníbal de Castro, embajador de la República Dominicana ante la ONU. Quiero destacar la presencia de la directora del periódico Diario Libre, la señora Inés Aispún, para quien pido un aplauso. A los representantes de las Naciones Unidas, el PNUD, que se encuentran aquí presentes, para nosotros es un honor que estén en la mañana de hoy. Mis palabras serán al cierre. Creo que es una mañana prometedora, donde profesionales del área de la comunicación, de estrategia, de marketing, del turismo, estarán hoy presentando las diferentes estrategias que se están utilizando en el mundo para seguir encaminando el turismo. En nombre de la República Dominicana quiero expresar que ha sido una jornada exitosa. El primer día con el seminario de turismo sostenible y el respeto al medio ambiente en la República Dominicana. Ayer, en nuestra primera reunión del Comité Ejecutivo de la Organización Mundial del Turismo, la primera vez que se realiza en República Dominicana, fue una gran experiencia, donde vimos a diferentes países expresar sus pensamientos en las diferentes problemáticas que enfrenta el turismo a nivel mundial, como es el cambio climático, un turismo sostenible y amigable al medio ambiente. Y no quiero dejar de agradecer al ministro de Arabia Saudí, presidente del Consejo de la Organización Mundial del Turismo, por todo el apoyo que le ha dado a la República Dominicana. Muchísimas gracias. Y agradecer a Surat. Ayer lo dije en la cena, República Dominicana no tiene cómo agradecerte todo el apoyo que le ha dado a nuestro país. Y sé que lamentablemente Surat ha quedado encantado por esa isla que está en el mismo trayecto donde nace el sol y en 2 años ya ha venido 11 veces. Así que este país te quiere y si te quieres mudar aquí, ponemos la sede de la Organización Mundial del Turismo en República Dominicana. Muchísimas gracias.
Muchas gracias, ministro, por recordarnos el recorrido que nos ha llevado hasta estar aquí el día de hoy. Es un honor presentar al secretario general Surat Polilikashvili para sus palabras de bienvenida. Y secretario general, le recuerdo que después continuamos aquí en el escenario 5 minutos más.
Todo es culpa tuya, querido ministro, de cena de ayer. Todos no queremos trabajar hoy, nadie. Lo vi las caras entrando aquí en el hotel y nadie no quería entrar en esta sala. Pero muchas gracias. Muy buenos días. Estoy muy contento. Estamos todos muy contentos, muy felices. Y estoy viendo si está con nosotros o no nuestro querido amigo ministro de Mauritius. I want to see if Minister of Mauritius, Tia Stephen, he is here. If not, it's his birthday, and let's applaud him and wish him all the best. I think it's not the best place for birthday to be here. It's much better to be outside, and I'm sure that he's enjoying his day, and we will congratulate him. Best wishes to him, to his country. Thanks to him for his excellent support. Excellent Executive Council we all made yesterday. Dear Chair, dear friend, Your Excellency Ahmed Al-Khatib, thank you for your leadership. Thanks to all your team. I want to thank to our hosts who made us very tired of hospitality these days, and it never stops, you know. And of course, I want to thank to my team, my colleagues, working very hard to make this Executive Council so nice and so productive. The thematic session of today, I don't know in which language I'm speaking. The thematic session of today, it's very something new for all of us, and I will try to explain why, because it was mentioned in Interbrandt's presentation yesterday that the world changed already. Tourism has changed, world has changed, we changed. But today, most important thing, one of the most important things for tourism development is communication, how we communicate. We never did this kind of meeting between media, social media representatives, and we have quite interesting and important representatives from big names like Meta is, like Google is, like Interbrand is, BBC. I don't want to miss someone, all of you. Many thanks to be with us. Again, it's for us first time we are doing it. Our member states are very interesting to know where tourism is going, how we have to communicate, how we have to promote destinations, how we have to, we were talking about sustainability. If we don't communicate well and if we don't give strong and clear messages to tourists, to ourselves, to our kids, we will not come to the Agenda 2030 or Agenda 2050 or whatever is it. So these kind of meetings, and I asked Marcelo, and we want to make it to create a network of all heads or all departments of communications of all member states. First of all, it will support and help to promote our activities like UNWTO, also each one of our member states. The second, we will, as we do, we will learn a lot of things from each other, and then we will become much stronger than we are. So thank you for this another successful meeting. I'm sure that we will have interesting discussions. We will learn again many new things, what we don't know. For example, I will tell you that I don't have email. I was saying this is something not usual today. It's not funny and it's not cool, but many people have something which we have to see from them, and I'm sure that this kind of communication we have to establish and to make regional and local level, and it will help, first of all, to promote tourism destinations and to promote countries, activities all of us and all of you are doing in your countries. So it's very interesting, very creative, and let's use this floor and let's use this networking, which is very important today for make tourism industry better. I want to welcome the members from our sister or brother organizations from United Nations, UNESCO. Thank you, UNDP, to be with us. We started 2 years ago, thanks to Zorica, to develop this kind of, to stronger our relationship. We are very small, but industry is quite big. So thank you to be together and have a nice day. Thank you, República Dominicana, again for wonderful 3 days. We will come back, don't worry. And we will do more things with you because we love you and we love to have strong, nice friends and good partners. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Gracias, Secretaria General, por sentar el marco para la sesión de este día. We're talking about new narratives in tourism, and especially of tourism going beyond tourism, to the extent that at times you don't need to speak about tourism to speak about tourism. So we thought this would be really an ideal fit for a special recognition that we would like to make today. And it's referred to an initiative that has been fostered by the Secretary General since he took office, which is fostering innovation and seizing on the talent of startups in combination with technology. Together with Save the Children Dominican Republic, UNWTO organized the Regional Challenge in Central America and the Caribbean for innovation and digitalization of education through the tourism sector, education for the future. Taking advantage, as I said, of technology to improve tourism, education, and training in the region. This is also talking about tourism, not necessarily talking about tourism as the main headline. Contamos justamente con los ganadores de esta competición de startups y contamos también para la entrega, y le voy a pedir al secretario general que se nos junte con nosotros de nuevo aquí en el escenario, y invito a la directora ejecutiva de Save the Children de la República Dominicana, Álvaro Rodríguez, también que nos acompañe. Gracias. Señor Rodríguez, adelante, secretario general, y aprovechando que tenemos obviamente a nuestro anfitrión, sin el cual nadie de nosotros estaría hoy aquí. Adelante. No. Sí.
Muy buenos días a todos y todas. Ministro David Collado. En nombre de Save the Children, República Dominicana, y en nombre de nuestro presidente, el señor Juan Tomás Díaz, quiero agradecer al secretario general de la Organización Mundial del Turismo, ZURAP, a Natalia Bayona, que no nos acompaña, por haber propuesto esta iniciativa y por haber confiado en nuestra organización para el desarrollo de este reto, Educación para el Futuro, el primero de este tipo realizado en América Latina. Combinar el turismo con la educación es una oportunidad de unir sectores en beneficio mutuo, apoyar a jóvenes emprendedores del sector turístico que además tengan una visión social para apoyar la educación representa una experiencia sin precedentes, más cuando estos jóvenes son centroamericanos y caribeños. Queremos extender nuestra felicitación a los 4 ganadores de este reto, cuyos proyectos han sido seleccionados entre más de 100 participantes de América Latina y el Caribe. Para nosotros, la mejor inversión que podemos hacer en cualquier país es la educación de nuestros niños y niñas. El país que tendremos mañana es el reflejo de nuestra niñez de hoy, y a esto pueden contribuir todos los sectores, como representa hoy el sector turístico también. Muchas gracias.
Muy bien, pasamos entonces a la entrega de la primera distinción. Tenemos en pantalla también. Deberíamos tenerlo en pantalla si funciona. Perfecto. Ganador de impacto social, Ernesto Visita. Adelante. Muchísimas gracias. Pasamos a la siguiente categoría, por favor. Fundación Agua y Tierra. Felicitaciones. Muchas gracias. Un aplauso. Nuevas tecnologías. Nolim Studios. Muchísimas gracias. Y concluimos también en la categoría Nuevas Tecnologías con Sport Town. Muchas gracias y gracias por felicitarlo con un buen cálido aplauso. Gracias. Muchísimas gracias. Bueno, gracias nuevamente, gracias secretario general, gracias ministro, gracias Save the Children. Por supuesto, secretario general.
No, I just wanted to explain what we did. I mean, we gave the prizes, but what are these prizes about? 2 months ago, we announced with the minister the competition to attract on the board the talent from Dominican Republic, and our dear colleagues, dear friends, they are winners of this competition. That shows that Dominican Republic has a talent to export, and we are ready and we are here, and this recognition is to help them to give their knowledge to other countries and to other member states. That's it. So, congratulations, enhorabuena a todos y les deseo. Y tenemos que repetir, querido ministro, yo creo, este tipo de iniciativas porque tenemos que traer más jóvenes con nosotros, más ideas y más startups en turismo, por eso estamos aquí. Perdóname. Gracias.
Gracias, gracias secretario, por aportar más contexto. Con lo cual ya entramos en sesión realmente, porque de esto se trata, ¿verdad? Es decir, el turismo no solo relegado al segmento que cubre al producto turístico como tal. We have to go beyond tourism narrative, just being isolated, so to speak, within the promotion of destinations of tourism products, as important as they are. But we see here that tourism has many circles of influence and of interaction. And tourism is also at the end of the value chain of the whole development process. That's why not only is UNWTO specifically directly linked with curating items within the global goals, but of course we tick many boxes. Tourism is a result. Tourism needs the infrastructure, needs the education, needs the sustainability, needs energy management, water and so on. This is why I reiterate, you don't need to necessarily talk about tourism to be talking about tourism. Today's session has 4 legs. The first one will be, and the Secretary General already referred to this, we will be talking about how do we brand, how do we position, how do we innovate, how tourism is communicated, both from a branding and commercial aspect, but also to the broader public. Why? Because the pandemic made it clear. Tourism's relevance became clear due to its absence. This is when tourism awareness beyond the normal sphere of tourism became much more important, both at the political decision-making level, at the investment level, and naturally at the media level. Interbrand will be part of the first session where we will address these topics in conversation also with a specialized journalist. I think we can have the first, that's them, who will be joining us here. The second segment, we are privileged to count on Instagram and Meta as partners. It's curious, and then again it's not, that Instagram embraced actively tourism at the height of the pandemic. This is when we started to work with Instagram, and UNW is extremely grateful for this partnership, which is so relevant and so important. A visionary approach. And we're talking technology, and we're talking new ways of involving not only the destinations, but also the users, not also the promotional boards, but also the ministries. So how do we enrich the narrative of tourism? The Dominican Republic is a world example of a tourism economy which has embraced tourism as a pillar of its development. And this has also a corollary in how it's positioned in the media. And I'll be honored to have a conversation with the leading newspaper directors of the country in terms of what lessons can we learn from the Dominican experience in how to position tourism beyond tourism. So tourism mainstreaming also, not only in the economy, but also in the media landscape. And finally, we've had, and thanks to the generous support by our host, the Dominican Republic, a group of media traveling the country over the past 3 to 4 years ahead of the Council. They will provide fresh insights on what they see as a relevant tourism story. A broad sketch, few ideas to share with us and to exchange. We will try to make this as dynamic as possible, each segment. Time is never on our side, but this is not a bad thing. Especially we want to really ensure that our audience has specific takeaways. And then we will, if time allows, we will have, of course, we open the mic for interventions, for quick exchanges with the panelists. So without further ado, Pedro, Borja, Michael, join me up here. Don't be shy. You're not shy, guys. Exactly. And a warm round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you. I want to sit here, if you don't mind. We're in the way.
Yeah,
we should move. Okay. So let's make some air for the presentation, and that's it. Sorry.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Hi. Well, thank you. Marcelo, thank you, UNWTO, and thank you, the Dominican Republic. I'll take your minister. I would love to live in this wonderful island. Thank you also, Melia, for hosting this event. We were very thrilled and honored to be invited into the stage to talk to you and walk you through what we believe. I mean, this is our passion. Obviously, we're brand consultants. We love brands. But we want to shift a little bit the perception around what a brand is, because, you know, according to the theme today, narratives, we feel brands are much more than just a logo. You know, usually we confuse and we think about brands in terms of identity, but we feel narratives and storytelling is the one thing that brands need to do the best, and to offer immersive experiences. So we're going to walk you through what we have titled Future Brand Narratives in Tourism, okay? And how branding has changed and the world has changed after COVID. And yesterday we were talking about a reset in the world and how brands are also evolving in this context, okay? So today I'll be walking you through this presentation, and then with me we'll have a discussion with Marcelo, Michael, and Pedro around some of the subjects that I'm going to be tackling with this presentation. Okay, so bear with us. I'll try to be as quick as possible with this presentation there so we can have a proper discussion. Interbrand, well, yesterday we talked about that. I'm not going to stop here a lot, but basically we coined the term branding. We were the inventors of this, and we've been around for many years. So this is just to tell you that we love brands. We have been around. We have been working with brands in many industries. And today we want to talk to you about the industries and how brands are competing outside industries more and more. And the brands that are performing better are the ones that are breaking the boundaries of industries. So we, as I said, been around working with many sectors, but especially obviously with here are a few examples, you know, whether it's a destination, a city, a museum, a country, a region, a province, you know, destination brands and tourism brands have many faces, we tend to identify just country branding, but there are many, many ways in which you can talk about brands. Lately, we've been working a lot with Saudi Arabia and many brands and tourism and destination brands in the country. So we're going to use some of these examples to tell you how we are evolving in the way we work with brands. One thing is for sure, brands have never been as important as today. We in Interbrand like to talk about the brands have gone through different ages. We at the beginning it was a matter of identity, then brands evolved into being a valuable asset, and we invented brand valuation. We also stepped into a different era where experience brand was in the experience was the one thing that we started to feel immersive, and brands started to create experiences that felt relevant to the consumers, and then evolved into the age of you. And this is when technology allowed the consumer to be empowered, so brands would shape their offer and their experiences around tailor-made experiences around their consumer. So, as we like to say, at the beginning, brands were identifiers, then brands started to become valuable assets, then experiences, and then ecosystems. So, and this was in the past, and this is cumulative over time, but what is the next era? What is the next phase? Where are brands heading towards, especially after this reset that we just, and this disruption that the world has gone through? So again, identifiers, we all know destination brands and tourist brands, the most iconic ones. I love New York. This is a classic exercise of branding. But then we see, and we brought to you different examples of other brands have managed. When we created this merger in between LAN from Chile and TAM from Brazil, we valued the brand, both brands, and made a model and created a brand proposition and a narrative that really merged these two brands into one single proposition. But considering those two brands as valuable assets, then I'm sure if I show you this, you will think about one country, and this would be obviously New Zealand. And this is, we love this because this is how a destination brand like New Zealand has managed to use Hollywood as a vehicle to promote an immersive experience of their brand. So this has been an iconic move in tourism, and we love to highlight this. And this is a perfect example of age of experience in brand tourism. Another example would be, and this is a case study, I would like to play a video. This is a Prince Akatoki hotel brand. This is a brand that was crafted around a specific necessity of individual needs. So in this hectic world where business travelers are moving in cities, they are looking for sanctuaries of peace, and leveraging the Japanese DNA of the brand, we created this experience. And I'm going to play a video now so you'll understand a little bit better the case study that perfectly exemplifies this age of you in branding.
せわしない街で目まぐるしく生き、立ち止まる間も休む間もなく流れ続ける日々。私たちに必要なのは歩を緩めてひとときひとときを感じられる場所なのです。The name Akatoki comes from an ancient Japanese word for dawn, because dawn marks a new beginning. At dawn, anything is possible.
Our approach was simple. It was to share the best of Japan with the rest of the world. Japan's a really incredible place where design's evident in so many elements of daily life. The craftsmanship, that obsessive attention to detail, and spaces that were built to create a sense of quiet mindfulness. To bring that to life, we based our design philosophy on Fusuma panels, traditional Japanese sliding doors that literally move apart and redefine a space. What that means is when they open up, it's like an invitation for people to try something new.
Japan has its own distinctive style of hospitality. We like to think of it as a service from the heart. It's about anticipating a guest's needs, sometimes before they even know it themselves. It's something we've been practicing for a long time.
When designing the interiors, we follow the Japanese philosophy of ma. It's the idea of finding balance and harmony by juxtaposing positive and negative space. We want our guests to walk into the Prince Akatoki and find a sanctuary.
Our hotels fuse Japanese and local culture to create a luxury experience. And they are made for you. From the moment you arrive, you are invited to slow down, breathe, and re-enter the world, feeling new again.
So this is what we call an immersive narrative and an immersive storytelling that really, this is a brand that is crafted around a necessity and ultimate insight from the consumer. You know, we all live busy lives. Welcome to this Prince Akatoki Sanctuary of Peace, where we will celebrate the Japanese culture. You know, so this is what we call is branding. It's not so much about the name or the logo or the colors, you know, but rather the whole holistic experience that the brand is offering. So to our point before, you know, brands have never been so important, but however, what we feel is their role has changed dramatically. What we see now is that consumers are moving faster than brands. We see that the society, technology has allowed consumers to be ahead of brands. So companies and brands are a little bit lagging behind and trying to be to deliver things that surprise. You know, so that's the challenge for brands into the future. You know, how are we going to be able to surprise, to do bold moves, and to do things that will engage us with the consumer? So for that, we have coined this idea of iconic moves. You know, brands in the future need to make iconic moves that will keep them ahead of the curve and always surprising customers and being ahead of customers' expectation. And to the degree that brands are capable of doing this, they will be successful in capturing people's imagination and attention, right? So there are 4 effects to those iconic moves. You know, when we leap ahead of the customer expectations, we create a new normal, we force internal change, we create a monopoly window because we're going to be first movers, and ultimately we will drive extraordinary results. And a very good example of this is what we created for British Airways. Back in the day, having a flatbed on a business cabin was surreal, but now it's very normal. But this was an iconic move by a tourism brand like British Airways. You know, now everybody else followed, but then it gave them a window of opportunity and a monopoly window that will help them grow the business and be ahead of the curve, as we said. You know, another example we love, and we work a lot with Middle East and Alula. You know, it's a destination brand that are doing amazing things. You know, so the whole nature of the environment. I don't know if you've been there, but it's a little bit like Petra in Jordan. You know, so all these caves, you know, all these pristine environment, this virgin environment of you know, where you can submerge in the culture, and the way they are addressing this is a hotel by Jean Nouvel, which is carved into the stone. You know, this is how a brand is incorporating the DNA of the destination into the way they are developing facilities and infrastructures and hotels. So again, an iconic book by an iconic destination. So those 2 are good examples. So, but the question remains, you know, what's next in branding? You know, so what we feel is, and we tend to talk less about positioning, because if the customer is constantly changing and we need to be ahead of the curve, you know, to which degree having a brand position made us a little bit static, you know, so we should be something more dynamic. You know, brands should be less about where you stand and more about where you're heading towards. You know, so in this, with this mantra and with this philosophy, this is the way we work, and this is the way we feel brands should be innovating. We need to make sure that we understand where we're coming from and where we're going, and connect those 2 points and make and populate a trajectory towards an ambition with iconic moves that will keep us ahead of the curve and making sure that our brand is constantly relevant into the future. So this is the challenge for new brands, and those could be little narratives that will take us to the ultimate ambition that we have identified. And then we see a world with crisis. What we have seen, and after working with many industries and many brands, is that unsatisfied customer that is constantly moving and evolving is less and less reliant on governments, on the media, on NGOs. They don't trust so much the organizations they used to trust. So they're turning into brands as references, as we call, acts, as a reference of what the world should be doing. So they request from brands and companies to deliver and to give back to society something in return. So it's not only the brands need to grow their business, but what are you doing for me and what are you doing for societies? So in this, with this premise, at Temática we figure, what would be the next step towards the future. So this is when we launch this age of possibility, which would be the 5th age of the brand evolution. So brands as acts of leadership. So today brands need to be leaders, need to be inspiring, need to have a compromise with society, and need to deliver beyond just business results. So we have moved, as you can see, across time, and this is for the last 80 years. From brands being assets of marketing to assets of growth, and now assets of leadership. And this is quite important because it's a breaking point in branding history. And then brand leadership is also about doing things right, but also doing, and delivering experiences. But then, and these are examples of how these brands are leading into this new era of branding. So Lego, for example, they deliver experiences, amazing storytelling, but then they also have this compromise with sustainability. So it's not only that they do amazing stuff, but they do it in a very responsible and leader way. So the way they build and they recycle and they use plastic in an inspiring way that really connects to what we believe brands should be doing. Others like Nike, so immersive interactions, Nike in the metaverse, but also making sure equality is also part of the equation. So incorporating women from different cultures and making sure that everybody is invited. So the brand, again, is doing amazing products and amazing services, but also having always this little bit of a compromise with the world. Airbnb, tourism brand, to some extent, is not only about talk the walk, but walking the talk. It's not only about how they have invented experiences, but how inclusivity is part of their equation. And they want to make sure that every bit of their service and products that they deliver have this, incorporates this aspect of inclusivity. So it's true and is unique to their DNA. And finally, doing things right, like Apple, obviously, the example we all love of a brand, but also doing the right things, with security. So I give you the best technology and the best iPhone and the best products, but also I'm making sure that you're protected. So this is the way I'm thinking about you, consumer, and this is the way I'm a leader. So that's how we see brands should be evolving. And so the question now is, which are the future brand challenges and threats? So what we see, and this is according to Professor Linda McGraw from Columbia Business School, thinking that your major competition is within your industry creates major blind spots. And this is something that we have seen For example, we may think that Avianca is competing with Iberia or LATAM Airlines, but they might be competing with Zoom, because to which extent Zoom is detracting business possibilities from an airline because there will be people that won't be traveling because they have Zoom as an alternative brand, So am I competing with brands within my industry, or am I competing with brands in other industries or other arenas, Again, a couple of examples, is Walt Disney World competing with other theme parks or with Oculus that could offer you immersive experience at home, so they will detract some part of the business out of your brand proposition. Or Booking.com, and this is a very recent example I just read in the news today, that Uber is launching a service that allows you to make reservations on cruises, so you can do that with Uber, and Uber is supposed to be not a tourism brand, right? So this is the danger and the threat, So from industries into arenas, this is how industries looked like back in the day, and this is how arenas look like. Arenas are based on customer needs, specific customer needs, whether it's to explore, to thrive, to play, to move, instead of banking, airlines, tourism, So this is how we feel brands should be moving towards, towards arenas. And this is a very good example of a brand that has understood this very well. They started out selling books, as we all know, but then they started populating their offer of products and services with different, whether it's video, whether it's music, with supermarket, whether it's, distribution, whatever. And to the degree they have managed to expand their offering in different arenas, they've been able to make sure that the brand value and the business has grown significantly, because they are not playing within one single industry of, books, but rather playing with different arenas. So this is quite a good example, and we feel there is an opportunity for tourism brands to do something like this. So Explore would be the arena for tourism. This is the natural arena. What we see is that Explore has different aspects and definition. What we have defined or identified Explore is about lust of life. It's about Explore brands awaken, inspire, and fulfill our desire for the unknown. Explore is about being our most alive. So tourism brands is all about this, right? So we have identified 6 Explore brand narratives, and we have illustrated those 6 narratives with 6 examples of brands that we have worked with. So the first one would be, Explore brands are self-explanatory guides, that brands that help us explore clear, first and foremost, about the journey within. And this is an example of a brand, hotel brand that we did in Patagonia in Argentina, but it has 4 destinations already, 4 hotels. What they do is they offer you very immersive experiences. Again, the hotel is completely embedded into the landscape, and they allow you to find yourself, to make the most out of your potential and the benefits. And what they do is they buy land, and they make sure that the land that they buy, they protect it. So this is how a brand like Explore is pushing for a narrative, like, allowing you to explore yourself and explore the world around you. This would be one narrative. Another example of a very recent project that we did in Sydney. This was a rebranding for a harbour. Sydney is very dependent on the icon of the Sydney Opera House. So this client, this is another part of another harbour. How can we do how can we make a statement? So second narrative would be the power of storytelling. And this is how we have used the whales, as an iconic symbol, and created narratives around that, and a museum of different whale tales that populate the space and give you and allow artists, 30 different artists, to tell the story about the harbor. So another narrative. Then also beyond interactions, brands can transform standard interaction in moments of delight, discovery, and wonder. This is a very recent example from Meliá. I mean, this is one of our clients, and they had a partnership with Rafa Nadal, the tennis player. So they both together came and created and crafted a new brand called Cell, which really offers you immersive experience in the Mediterranean lifestyle. So again, it's more than a logo. It's more, it's how the brand is set up, how the type of activities you find at the hotel, all these things. A fourth narrative is time is competition. Brands that help us explore are ultimately competing for people's time, which is a tall order. So when we created this campaign, Britain is great. It wasn't only about the destination, Great Britain as a tourism destination, but also business. So it's not competing against other tourism brands, but also against other investment brands, right, or educational brands, because also Great Britain has the best universities. So we managed to create this ecosystem for the company. For the brand. And the last two examples would be this is the Discover. This is it offers a 360 experience. This is a points, loyalty program by GHA Hotels. So instead of giving you points, it will give you experiences. So you can redeem your points with experiences, and it was a success. It represents more than 600 hotels around the world. And what we did is we reinvented the narrative, so making sure it was quite immersive and really reframed the standards of loyalty programs for hotels and airlines. And lastly, last but not least, feel it. Brands that want to help explore have to start with how people should feel and shape their life experiences around that. We feel that Saudi Arabia is doing an amazing job and leading with brands that are really groundbreaking. How, from Sauda Peaks to Red Sea to Qiddiya to the Rig. I don't know if you are familiar with these experiences, but these are groundbreaking, and it's really interesting to see how these are crafted around specific needs of the ultimate consumer. So to summarize what we have presented, brands have never been so relevant. They are more important than ever. Their narratives need to be immersive. People want to relate to them like never before. Leadership is the new era of branding. People expect brands to be leaders, to give back to society, to have a positive role. The moves that brand makes, brands need to keep and be ahead of the curve, and need to be always surprising and fresh and new to be relevant and to stay relevant over time. Arenas, we're not competing in industries, we're competing in arenas. So let's make sure that we're looking to the sides and making sure that our competitor or whoever is taking business out of our business is not coming from the same industry but other industries. And finally, explore as the arena that is most relevant to tourism brands. Okay, so I'll leave it here, and I'll give you now the word to Marcelo, Michael, and Pedro, who will be discussing a little bit of these subjects. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you. Ahora sí, muchas gracias. Enough interbrand for the time being. Does it make sense from a media standpoint? What's your takeaway from this? When we're talking new narrative, you travel the world, you identify stories on the ground around tourism, and package them, and hopefully position them. So, where does this fit in?
It makes perfect sense when you live in the media world and having sat through and have it explained in detail. But the challenge from a media perspective is, how does the media take this and communicate that to the end consumer? And I think that's the challenge. The conversation, the plan, the description there is excellent, and I love the fact that we finish with explore, because that's what media want to do. But that's the challenge. And I think what brands need to do is understand what's happening in the media world. So from where I'm sitting, we've just entered stage 3 of travel media. So when I started 20 years ago in this space, the travel editor was king. The travel editor curated content, the travel editor decided what content was published, and destinations had to work with editors. Then 10 years ago, we entered stage 2, which was bloggers, and bloggers then, they were the curators, and everybody could create content, and it was an open door. All content was available. And now we're entering stage 3, which is AI, where there is no author anymore. So chatbots decide the answers or the content that's served to the consumer. So this morning I did a search on ChatGPT and looked for restaurants here in Punta Cana. I got an excellent set of results, but there was no author, there was nobody behind it, there was no curation, there was no editing. It was just content that was brought together by AI. Where it came from, nobody knows. Was it good or bad? I don't know. But that's where the consumer is going. They're going to start using chatbots. So Bing, for example, have already incorporated it. Google are catching up with Bing. So we're now in a stage where tourist boards have the challenge, which is who's publishing this content, where is it coming from, and can we engage with it or can we manage it? And if there is content that is, let's say, incorrect in a magazine or a newspaper, you can contact the editor and they'll make the changes, they'll edit. Likewise, you talk to a blogger, you can point out where there might be, an issue with a piece of content, but with a chatbot, you can't do that. And that makes it incredibly challenging. The answer is journalists have never been more important. So content creators, journalists, but good content creators and good editors.
And here I thought that the time of added value for information generation was over. And it was more the container rather than the content, which is relevant, because this is how you get the big bucks for advertisement.
But I think trust is important. People want to know where the content is coming from, who the author is. So it's the why, not the where, is important. Why has that journalist traveled? Who is that journalist? What's their background? Why are they writing about this topic? I think it's an opportunity for destinations and DMOs to work more closely with journalists, but they have to do more work to actually validate who those media are, because they don't have editors anymore to say this is a good journalist.
Now, how to ensure, we were talking about new narratives. UNWTO is not really in the branding business. We're in the tourism for development business. This is the mandate of the organization. And we're trying to broaden and enrich the narrative around tourism, precisely to highlight that. How do you navigate that when we've just heard from the experts, from Interbrand, on really the value, and you were talking about stage 3 tourism journalism. I'm paraphrasing this for what Borja presented. It's stage 3 brand, so it's now brand and leadership, right? So there's a certain correlation with that. So what do we do with this? Are you proposing that you're a gun for hire?
So there's a perfect link to the presentation we've just seen from Interbrand. It's the final point 6, explore. That's what media want to do. I think the stage or the day of the heavily curated press trip is over. It doesn't work anymore. Editors don't want content that they've seen 1,000 times before. They don't want to see an itinerary where the same places are visited again and again. The best press trips I've been on in recent years or recent months, and the best press trips I've been involved in, is where the media have time to explore and create their own stories, create their own content. So an example, a trip I did last year, it was a 6-day trip. The first 3 days, it was a lightly curated itinerary where the destination was introducing the journalists to what was available, what they could explore, what they could see and do. And then the last 3 days, based on what the journalists had seen the first 3 days, the journalists could choose for themselves what they wanted to go back to, what stories they thought were interesting, what people they liked, what they wanted to find out more about. The content produced from that was some of the best content I've ever seen. So explore, to go back to that point there. I think you need to give media time to explore, to find those stories. But the work of the Tourist Board has got harder than ever, in that they need more resources to audit and validate the media that they're going to be working with. You still need to take a lot of time as a DMO or a destination to find good media to do that.
Now, before I move on to Pedro to talk about strategy, because this overall boils down to strategy, how do you ensure Michael, that media doesn't really partner with brands, right? The role of media is to be that neutral instance which ensures the checks and balances. How do you navigate that? How do you how do you balance it out? Whilst searching, for a relevant, meaningful story. And again, this is like a mantra. We're talking here, I want to always go back to the field of tourism for development.
Soft sell. Hard sell doesn't work. So media don't want to be sold to, and they will see very quickly if a brand is pushing a brand message. Soft sell, the opposite works. So I was on a sustainability press trip last year, and the destination...
Was it sustainable?
Almost. But the media, the destination was very clever. They said to the media day one, this is the first time we've done a sustainability press trip. We're new to this. We're learning. We're on a journey. We'd like you to come on that journey with us. So they were open, honest, and upfront with the media. They weren't hard sell. Therefore, the media were immediately on side. From day one, they were on side. So again, it worked. Now, that said, sustainable tourism or media to date, the challenge has been any trip I've been involved in or on, the DMO is inviting specialists in sustainable writing and tourism. Whereas in fact, for us to really engage with sustainable tourism, I think mainstream media, everybody has to be on those press trips. It can't be just the specialist media. But soft sell, to answer your question.
Is this the right strategic approach? The soft sell, Pedro? Is this what, with the very comprehensive presentation we witnessed? So you're not talking really about the brand, are you? The brand just comes in through the back door.
Well, I think definitely you need to, the soft sort of sell, it's very important, but when you think of, and again, I think the media has a critical role to play in sort of, I wouldn't call it positioning, but rather bringing awareness to certain destinations and certain brands. But we need to understand that we need to build those brands around people. So the communities, right, of those destinations are critical in that process, and maybe it hasn't been the case always. So if we want to tell stories, we have to tell stories about people and about communities, right? So how you engage not only consumers, but the people that are going to be directly impacted by that tourism is critical. So as for the role of the media, I think it's critical in those new narratives and portraying tourism in a different way and a different light, and the impact that tourism generates in destinations and to communities. But at the same time, I think brands have a responsibility to be developed around and created around people and communities. And to your point, I think I'm myself a backpacker. When I was studying, I had the opportunity to visit a lot of countries in Latin America, and what I think was most compelling of those destinations were the people, right? I was talking to a colleague from Mexico last night, and he was telling me about this industry in a village in Mexico that they do toys. And I think it was a fascinating story, but he told us it's not that well known, right? So I think brand is less about talking and more about doing. So I think portraying a message, it becomes harder because I think consumers, I think just detect very, very quickly when they are being sort of doctored or it's being a tailored messaging approach.
We had the first mover advantage. Borja mentioned first mover advantage. We had the first mover advantage because we were the first out of 4 blocks at this session. Okay, we started late. We need to call it a wrap at this stage. Of course, feel free to engage as we move on. But then again, both of you have addressed from your perspective and respective angles DMOs, for those not familiar with our acronym words, Destination Management Organization. So those promoting actually destinations. So what would be your message to them? How do they? How can they engage in this in a meaningful way, in a relevant?
I would say people first, right? Communities, people that are going to be working in the industry in your country, and consumers. And I think if you bring them to the table in defining those brands, you will be successful. If you're empathetic and you're able to meet customer expectations, not just from a demand perspective, but rather your value proposition. What you bring to the table has to be about people, and destination. Obviously, it has to be the weather, the sun, the beach. It's phenomenal, and Dominican Republic is the perfect example of that. But ultimately, and I would say firstly, if you want to develop a brand for the 21st century that is truly relevant, has to be about the people, through and through, end to end, people first, and then brand, because brands they need to appeal to everyone in the value chain, and that's critical.
Thank you, Pedro, for I'm losing here my papers, my notes, strategic notes. And to you, Michael, you mentioned media trips, which used to be one of the resources to really amplify the message. You mentioned what media trip you would attend, okay, when you can really craft the agenda, identify what's interesting. Which are the ones you would refuse? What should DMOs not invite you to attend? Because at times, and this is our experience in UNWTO, and this doesn't necessarily relate to tourism, but the freebie is not that attractive anymore. Free travel, accommodation, etc., that doesn't ensure any coverage at all. No. So, okay, having said that, so that's the wrong answer because I preempted that. What's the media trip you would not attend?
So the really good journalists that I work with, or the trips that I go on, are the trips where it's solo travel. So the really good media who produce great content in great publications with great audiences, they're doing trips by themselves now. They're not doing the group trips anymore. There is still a place for the group trips, but the best examples and the trips that work the best are where you're asked as a journalist, what would you like to do? That's it, no more. And the journalist gets to curate or at least engage and talk to the destination and say, well, this is what's of interest to me. This is who I am as a person. This is my heritage, my background. This is my voice, my audience. This is what I'm interested in. And the reason I go back to media being so important and dealing with the issue of AI, because it's amazing what's happening at the moment, is a chatbot or a chat tool or GPT cannot convey emotion or happiness or joy or an experience.
They're getting better at it.
I hope they don't get to that stage, but they are getting, and it's amazing what's happening. But I think only a good journalist can do that. And that's what sells. So in terms of soft sell, if a journalist is talking about an experience, an emotion, happiness, and people that they met, the brand benefits automatically without even having to mention the brand.
So it's people first.
100%.
Okay,
Always.
All right. So you can work for Interbrand now. So thank you very much. Thank you, Borja, down here. Thank you. Please, warm round of applause for Pedro and for Michael. And we move on. Next segment. Thank you. Feel free to just return. Leave the mics here. Thank you again. So it's people first. And if there is, talking about brands, if there is someone, a brand, an institution already, and it's become a verb, it's become everything, and it's related to people, and it's based on people, and we believe it puts people first, it really is Instagram, and it really is that connection. So what a coincidence that we have Instagram and Meta joining us here. So come on the stage. These are our two speakers. Yes, they should be here. There they are. Exactly. Pardon? You call the session. You shoot the video when you want. But okay, they'll be joining us soon here. And first they have a little taste of what they've been doing and how we've also been collaborating. Thank you very much. Podemos mostrar el video. Gracias. Wow, thank you. Don't stumble, Sharon. She's actually seeing the world through her eyes. So thank you. Thank you for sharing this with us. As I mentioned before, UNWTO was really honored to start working with Instagram really at the height of the pandemic. We actually had two, and this is very interesting, new partnerships around media and communication. Again, when the world stood still, one was with Instagram, and the other one was with Euronews. Euronews, and as you know, is a multi-language digital broadcast channel in Europe, and they opened the travel vertical in October 2020. Bad times, but still looking ahead for the relevance. So, what about tourism? How come that tourism has become something relevant for Instagram? Not only, of course, through the content stream generated by, of course, followers, users, and so on, but really for you to engage from the top of the sector.
Actually, before we hop in, I'll give a little bit about myself, and Sharon will give a little bit about herself as well. I've been with Meta for a year now, and I came actually from the pharmaceutical industry, a totally different world. But one of the things I loved when I was in that world, both on the government side and the patient side, was I work with people who got to tell their stories, and that's why I joined Instagram, was to give a chance for people to tell their stories. It was one of the things I was looking forward to. And so I also come from a small town, so we'll get into that some more as well, about the importance of the tourism and this program. But just want to give you a little bit about me, and I'll give Sharon a little bit about herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sharon Yang. I've been with Meta for 7 years now. I'm from San Diego, and I currently live in Washington, D.C. And what I do at Meta is I actually manage partnerships. So I help manage our partnerships with the UN system. I actually manage a lot of our diplomatic engagement as well. So it's a pleasure to be here. I'm so happy that we have the privilege of coming to Punta Cana to represent Meta and Instagram. But back to your question, I'll let Ernest take that. Back to your question. Tourism has been a very important thing on Instagram. We've seen it growing. It is content people engage with. We have 2 billion people who engage on our platform, and tourism is something, and travel, that is right up there with our other important areas and that people engage with. It's up there with youth content. It's up there with parental content, DIY stuff. Tourism is very important. And on top of that, it's something that teenagers are really engaging with as well. A lot of our creators have a significant amount of teen engagement with their content, and so it's just somewhere we see growth, and we see the importance of our platform there and tourism to our platform.
Of course, I mean, you have really the trends, hot trends, immediate, literally at your fingertips. How has this been changing? What have you seen over the past 2 or 3 years? We all have the benchmark of the pre-pandemic times where we are. Of course, we see this from a numbers perspective, just to see how things are moving. But then again, we saw the huge impact that this crisis, this pandemic, as well as many others, have had on consumer behavior in general, not only on tourism. Something new, something different? Is there a different world now than we see with what we saw before? And how then would you combine this, and what would you recommend, especially to those in the tourism sector, on how to really dive into that?
I mean, we've seen several trends. One of the things we've seen is that the type of content that our creators are providing is shifting, and I wouldn't say shifting. There's new content and new additional types of content that are coming to our platform. The content is still there that is, the pretty and the beautiful, but there's a new set of sustainable tourism, more information being provided about the locations by our creators, a shift towards like a whole new model of how people are interacting on the platform.
Precisely. So if you look at Instagram pre-pandemic, it was a lot of travelers potentially sharing very beautiful, aspirational photos of places they want to go to, or like you, it's like, I absolutely am inspired, I want to go there. But now if you look at Instagram, and particularly short form content, Reels specifically, you see that the content that people are sharing is much more informative. Yeah. When I go to a place, how do I communicate? When I go somewhere, how do I ask for the bill? How do I exchange currency? I was recently in Japan with my mother. I brought her for the first time. And so, as you can imagine, I was doing some research on Instagram. And as soon as then my Explore page on Instagram became filled with very relevant content for me. And it was everything from, if you want to ask for the check in Japan, it's not this, it's this. So it became very informative content versus, look at this beautiful place, go there. It's more like, go to this beautiful place, immerse yourself there. Immerse yourself in the culture. Learn a little bit of the phrases you'll need and the language that you'll need. So I think that's the biggest shift. Is not only is it from still images, but it's also to short form videos. And not just beautiful videos, but informative videos. So if you look on our platform now, a lot of the creators will start with the camera pointed to themselves, captions, so it's accessible for people who need to read. And again, it's more than just a beautiful photo, it's full immersion and information, education before you need to visit someone.
And continuing with that, it's also information that is very relevant to specific populations. And on the accessibility front, we have a lot of our creators who are, and some of the creators you'll hear about later on today, who presented information about how to travel if you are differently abled. How to get to the beach and beaches that are available for people who are in wheelchairs. So that authentic content that's really tailored to a group that needs this information is now available on our platform from people who are living that experience and who can present really, here's how I was able to go to these locations and experience it for myself.
Just quickly, maybe not everybody's familiar with the term. What is a creator? What is an Instagram creator? It's just anybody using the platform shooting something up?
I would say we are all content creators. And that, I would say, is the little c. We are all content creators. The big C, creators, as we define it, are people who actually do make a living using our monetization tools on our platform. So they actually can make, they are content creators as a profession.
Yeah. And we see our creators as very important to our platform. They're the soul of our platform in many ways. And we want to help them be able to monetize, be able to make a living on our platform. But beyond the living that they make, it's also the expanded access that they give to other small businesses, the people that they highlight in their videos, that people can then interact with that they might not have known about before. Several of our creators really did highlight, and as shown in the video, there are 58 small businesses that were highlighted in this program, but that's something that happens every day. People bring the opportunity to engage with a business, with a small business that they might not have seen before. And as I mentioned, my parents actually had a small business, and I could see even back then, this was well before Instagram was available to them, the impact that a little bit more recognition could have on a small business. And so when the creators on our platform highlight these businesses, they are bringing something to the local economy. They're bringing something different to the tourist economy as well.
Spoiler alert, we have two creators here who will be part of the last segment to see really how do we match the conceptual part, the theory, the people first, the branding, travel, journalism, coverage, etc., with what's really on the ground. Going back to people first, which I think is really the connecting thread, and those of you, of course, who witnessed yesterday the rebranding effort that UNWTO is undergoing, it is actually people-centric. It puts people front and center. I asked in the previous panel what their message would be precisely to DMOs, precisely to those promoting tourism. And also raising awareness, right? Which is then my role is as a specialized UN agency. Do you share the approach that was here transmitted by both a seasoned
Yes.
travel journalist and a world leader in branding?
The short answer is yes, but I would actually like to explain a little bit why we decided to partner with the UNWTO, how the program started, and then transition to why creators, why individuals, and why the answer is yes. So, like Marcelo referred to, we initially partnered with the UNWTO during the pandemic era, where there was a lot of economic uncertainty, particularly in the tourism field. And you ask, why was this a priority for us? It's because actually UNWTO and Meta have very similar shared goals. We care about responsible tourism, we care about sustainable tourism, we care about technology, we care about innovation. So for us, during this economic uncertain time and tourism, we thought the UNWTO was a perfect partner because they have a very unique way of bringing people together, convening the most important stakeholders in this area, like this room, like this executive council. And so our first partnership was actually creating a tourism recovery playbook for Instagram. It was geared towards tourism boards, towards small businesses to actually utilize our tools and showcase embrace social media as a way of communicating when tourism was not happening. How does a small business get their message out when tourists are not coming? Use social media, use Instagram. So this playbook, which you can still find on UNWTO with an opening from the Secretary General, was that guidebook to help people. How do we use our tools in an era when tourism is non-existent to highlight some of those local destinations that potentially, when tourism does open it up again, I can re-engage with. So what you saw there was a program called, the next phase of our partnership was See the World Through My Eyes. This was actually a program putting our playbook to the test. We took our own playbook, our own advice, and said, look, we can actually do it ourselves. We can create content ourselves as well. So this is where we partnered with UNWTO. We worked with 20 creators. As mentioned, 2 of them are sitting in a session later today, so you can ask them some questions and talk to them. 20 creators, and really worked with them to highlight hometown, hidden gems, local tourist destinations where they were. And again, this is a way that people could show content, pull back the curtain, hidden gems, and actually, wear these wearables and facilitate that type of content creation using wearables, which is also a cross-section of innovation and technology. So that's what this See the World Through My Eyes program really was. It was a way in highlighting how the individual is going to be very critical and the personal experience is going to be very critical to tourism and future narratives on tourism. And when you look to individuals, it's a diverse set of voices. These creators have very diverse and different audiences. And so when you want to increase your reach, or if you want to think about how do I promote, how do I market, look to diverse voices first and foremost. So the personal experience and diverse voice. And
if I could add on there, as you're looking at those voices, don't necessarily get caught up in the number of followers the creator has. I mean, it's not just the size of their following, it's how engaged their followers are. And a lot of the creators may have smaller, but very engaged audiences, and that also has a huge impact when those audiences are really paying attention to what those creators are putting out there in the world.
Now, we're having here a host, the Minister of Tourism of the Dominican Republic. We have the Minister of Tourism of Guatemala. I believe we have also delegates from Morocco, and apologies if I'm missing out anybody I don't identify at first sight. So what's your very specific, very concrete message, contrasting how you normally see tourism boards or tourism ministries portraying themselves, right, in contrast with what we're talking here. People first, engaging creators, less is more, maybe? Size is always relative. What's the message to, what should they pay attention to given your vast experience, and again, I mean, you're in the control room.
I mean, one of the things is to find those creators who are really excited about their location. I mean, there are people in small towns who really want to highlight where they're from. They want to bring the world to them. They want to share their experiences with the world. They want to share their stories. And I think that's something that, that boards can really can tie into and use.
Yeah, so I think there's a few very actionable ways in which you can utilize your own team, your own community, to be the best ambassadors for you. So you don't have to look very far. If I were to give some advice to tourism boards and ministries in terms of promotion, look in your backyard. Look at the community leaders and let them showcase and partner with them in sharing content, developing story, developing a narrative, first and foremost. And if what draws people into social, what draws people into your story are really the perspective and the authentic voices of those creators. So when you engage with a creator, when you partner with a creator to really amplify some of the sites that you want to showcase, let them be authentic. Let them be the authentic selves. It may not be the persona that the tourism board or in a policy setting we would typically utilize, but let them be authentic because their audience is a diverse audience and you want to showcase that. They're pulling into what Ernest mentioned. They're pulling in a very different audience than the typical audience. So really, really lean into that.
As you know, I'm a development economist by training, so I try to identify patterns. So this is a template. It works for tourism, but it works also for other segments because we're mentioning tourism here, but not all the time. It's just a way how you approach, right, a certain topic and using at least your platform then to amplify the message. I'm saying this because I see there in the back, for instance, we have a delegate from CAF, the Development Bank for Latin America, who are involved in tourism from another perspective, for instance, right? So we are a cross-cutting sector. We as a UN agency, we don't sell tourism per se. We try to convey the message of why tourism is so relevant for development. And then comes the whole rest. Now, you were talking, of course, to addressing, for instance, Minister Collado and tourism promotion agencies. What's your message then to international public entities? Somebody like the UN, the huge family that we represent, or a development bank like CAF?
The advice is actually not too different than what we just mentioned advising. The trend that we're seeing on Instagram or even on Facebook is that it's a turn towards the personal and the turn towards the authentic. So it is that personal, that authentic voice. And I think I mentioned to my colleagues last night, is like places, destinations need a voice. They have a persona now, and you need to personify them. And that's very different than I think the way that tourism was marketed before, where you would show a photo and that would be enough to drive somebody. It's not enough anymore. You actually want to show the story, the journey of this to this destination before you actually capture this image. So I think the authentic, the behind the scenes, those voices, the beautiful, the not so beautiful, show it all, because I think that authenticity makes it very much more approachable for someone to find and discover.
Yeah, and I'd also want to make sure it's clear. People aren't just going to Instagram to discover things. It's becoming a place of action as well. People are directly engaging with the small business. Even if they don't get a chance to travel to a location, they may see something and be very excited by it and go, oh my gosh, I did not know that was out there. I didn't know I could order a hat. Or I think Marion, one of our creators, highlighted a small hat shop. That was available. I can order something from there and have that brought to me. Even if I can't get to this location, if I can't travel, I can still experience this thing, and it's brought to me by social media. It's brought to me by Instagram.
Okay, we must bring this segment to an end, but before we finish this, who likes to play bad cop and who likes to play good cop?
I like good cop.
You like good cop. You're bad cop.
Where is this
Your
going?
the message to our audience and to those following us on streaming, to the minister, to your fellow creators. What are the don'ts? What don't they have to do when trying to use technology, communication technology, to engage in a meaningful way, to position the destinations and to really make a difference? Be the bad cop.
Bad cop?
Yeah, be mean.
We mentioned this earlier, don't just focus on the number of creators. Don't just, number of followers. That's not exactly where you have to focus. Be prepared to look a little bit deeper. So I think that's a don't. And don't think that it always has to be perfect. It doesn't have to be beautiful. Authentic we're in a beautiful location, and it's hard to not have beauty here when you're showing the pictures, but everything's not going to be perfect every time, and that's okay. So don't focus on it being perfect.
The do's. And of course, the do's are positive. We don't want to criticize anybody. But of course, we have our host, the Dominican Republic. So what's the Dominican Republic? What are they really excelling? What's the lesson really to be shared with others?
Of course. Do maximize and use the tools that Instagram has to offer. And I know that there's some communications professionals in here, so please, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but there are some tools on Instagram. Instagram guides. Use Instagram guides. 2, use Instagram Reels for discoverability. That is where you're going to get a lot of your views. That's where you're going to show up in the Explore page. So I think short form video is very important. Use creators. Definitely partner with community leaders, voices, whether they have a big audience or a small audience. Have someone else also bring a different perspective, an ambassador, to your social media and your communications as well. And do find hidden gems. I don't know about again, I'm just going to refer to the most recent travel, but what I was searching for, what I wanted to discover was I wanted to be in Japan, and I wanted to be one of the first adopters to discover something completely new that nobody had really been to before, that's not in a guidebook. So feature the small hidden gems, because to your point, this is a great platform to amplify small and local businesses as well, which is why we also were very proud of See the World Through My Eyes, because it wasn't just beautiful content creation, it was also engaging with the local community, and in a time of, again, economic uncertainty, amplifying, drawing people to small businesses. So do that, because I think there's a lot of powerful voices, undiscovered voices, and really authentic voices that you can use. So use the tools on our platform, and I'll leave you with, whenever you do a video, as I've mentioned before, please use captions. I think that's probably one of the most important things. Use captions for any of our tools. So I will leave you with that.
So thank you very much. From the really broad concept really to very specific recommendations, and we'll keep you posted on how our partnership evolves. We started with the recovery playbook. We're seeing the world through your eyes, my eyes, and let's see what comes. What's the next stop? Please, a warm hand for Sharon and for Ernest. You are dismissed. Thank you. Yes. Thank you very much. Bueno, necesitamos una silla más, por favor, y vamos a cambiar, evidentemente, al idioma de nuestro país anfitrión, aunque la introducción la haré en inglés, if you don't mind. We're trying to really shed light on the new narrative, on enriching, broadening the narrative around tourism from these different angles that you've been seeing this during this session. Of course, branding, which is key when we talk in tourism promotion, tourism visibility, and raising awareness, and how brands have evolved and their role. And we saw the evolution over time, and how they really also are putting people at the front and at the center. We moved on to, of course, technology, which is key to how we communicate nowadays, and how also tourism has been a new protagonism, especially in the world leader, for all things visual which is Instagram. But we're talking tourism, of course, and narrative and how to raise that awareness in the public. And then, of course, we cannot omit and we should not omit the media. Y ahora paso al español, tanto para la audiencia, pero también para los intérpretes. Y quisiera invitar aquí, porque me parece que precisamente la República Dominicana tiene muchos ejemplos que dar al mundo y lecciones que aprender. Gracias, ministro. De cómo saquemos al turismo del armario del turismo. Es decir, cómo transversalizamos la narrativa turística y cómo hacemos un posicionamiento editorial del turismo. Vuelvo a hablar del turismo más allá del turismo. Tengo aquí quienes me acompañan. Los invito acompañados por un aplauso, por favor. No hay protocolo, por orden de llegada. Por orden de calidad. Está muy bien, pero estamos a un mismo nivel. Para quienes no los conocen, obviamente que son muy conocidos en República Dominicana. Yo hasta ahora solo tenía el placer y el honor, obviamente, de coincidir con el embajador de la República Dominicana ante la OMT, pero me enteré que tiene un pasado periodístico relevante y hasta influencia en la vida privada de alguien más en este panel. Pero bueno, si les brevemente que se presenten, quiénes son, qué representan y seguimos conversando. Por favor, Inés.
Buenos días, muchas gracias por la invitación primero. Mi nombre es Inés Saizpún, soy periodista española y ya dominicana, llevo más tiempo aquí que allá y dirijo el periódico Diario Libre que fundó el señor que está allá, que es Aníbal de Castro. Acabamos de cumplir 22 años y nada, espero que este panel nos ayude a todos a entender dónde estamos y a dónde vamos.
¿Dónde estamos y a dónde vamos? Adelante.
Bueno, José Monegro, director del periódico El Día, del grupo de comunicaciones Corripio, que recién celebró 21 años de haber sido fundado.
Y yo soy Aníbal de Castro, actualmente represento a la República Dominicana permanentemente ante la Organización Mundial de Turismo, pero arrastro conmigo varias décadas de periodismo muy activo que incluyen, tal como dijo Inés, la fundación de Diario Libre, que es hoy en día el principal periódico de la República Dominicana. Monegro lo acepta.
Inés, un poco que nos une. Española, dominicana, la Organización Mundial de Turismo con sede permanente en España. España, otra importante economía turística. Pero yo no sé si existe una conciencia editorial sobre la relevancia del turismo, más allá del turismo. El turismo, obviamente, que es reconocido y se sabe. No quiero compararlo con países, pero ¿qué lecciones puede dar, en su experiencia, República Dominicana, justamente a otras realidades económicas y sociales donde el turismo tiene una incidencia tan grande? Porque ¿qué hacen ustedes bien y qué pueden mejorar los otros?
Esa es muy difícil, ¿eh? Esa pregunta es muy difícil. Mira, cuando yo asumí la dirección de Diario Libre, decidí dar muchísima más importancia a la sección de turismo, pero queríamos superar una tradición del periodismo dominicano que había sido que la sección de turismo era sección de viajes, en el sentido prácticamente de publireportajes de hoteles que se abrían o de líneas aéreas. Tal. Entonces decidimos hacer un grupo para...
Una pregunta, perdón. ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué decidieron ese cambio?
Porque el turismo es estructuralmente para República Dominicana una importancia en muchos aspectos. Empezamos a analizar y era... no solo la parte turística en sí, de viajes, hoteles y esta economía, sino que veíamos que transformaba los pueblos donde se desarrollaba, era el cambio de urbanismo, el cambio de cultura de la población, el cambio de las infraestructuras que tenían que llegar. Entonces decidimos hacer un binomio de un periodista de economía y otro de medio ambiente. Ellos dos trabajarían el tema del turismo porque se estaba ya se estaba evidenciando que el turismo iba a ser el cambio de motor fuerte. Empezamos muy bien, pero luego llegó la pandemia y todo se cerró y entonces tuvimos que reformular todo otra vez. Pero ese cambio de aceptar el turismo no como unas iniciativas de empresas de inversión, sino como la transformación donde se instalan y la transformación puede ser del medio ambiente, del tejido productivo, de las costumbres y del urbanismo, era lo que nos hizo entender que había que hablar del turismo de una manera mucho más transversal.
Y esto fue muy reciente. ¿Qué año? ¿Nos recuerda el año?
En el 20.
En el 20, o sea,
Sí.
anteayer.
Hace media hora.
Más o
sí,
menos,
sí,
hace
sí,
media
sí,
hora.
sí,
Perfecto. ¿La experiencia en el día cómo es? ¿Cómo tratan el turismo? ¿Es una nueva tendencia editorial en este sentido también? ¿Comparten ese enfoque?
Bueno, muy buenos días. Lo primero que cuando me tocó entré como fundador del periódico El Día, como su director, con un director que era muy visionario, Molina Morillo. Y cuando yo empecé a tener alguna incidencia en el contenido editorial en mi condición de su director, una de las primeras recomendaciones que le hice, y el doctor Molina, el director de ese momento, la aceptó, fue sacar turismo de economía, de la sección de economía. Porque cuando teníamos turismo en la sección de economía, lo veíamos muy cifras, muy estadística, una visión muy economicista. Y empezamos a ver el turismo como algo transversal. Y por eso lo sacamos de una sección encasillada de economía. Y siempre en Vida y Estilo estaban los viajes, los plurireportajes. ¿Por qué sacamos el turismo de economía? Porque mucho antes de la pandemia nosotros descubrimos que el turismo es algo transversal. Siempre tenemos nuestros choques con la industria turística, porque también nos ha sido difícil entender, y que nos entiendan también a nosotros, que toda la actividad del país incide en el turismo. Incluso la manera en cómo nosotros abordamos los sucesos tiene una incidencia en el turismo. Entonces, quizá porque en mis inicios en el periodismo, quizá de las primeras experiencias que yo tengo fue conocer la zona turística del norte, Playa Dorada, que tuvo un momento de auge, y por razones sociales que la gente no entendía, tuvo una decaída, ha vuelto otra vez a subir. Entonces, como por ejemplo el comportamiento de los taxistas de la zona, que se veía como algo de transporte, contribuyó a que se alejaran los cruceros de Puerto Plata. Entonces, como uno tenía esa conciencia de cómo un país turístico, todo tiene que mirarse como parte del turismo. La estabilidad política y económica del país atrae gente. El abordaje de los sucesos atrae o aleja personas. No es que no publicamos todos los sucesos. Por ejemplo, en El Día erradicamos la sangre de la portada. En el periódico El Día no sale sangre en la portada. Salen los incidentes, salen las muertes, salen los atracos, pero no sale la sangre. No hay por qué poner la sangre. Entonces, le hemos dado siempre en El Día ese abordaje integral al turismo. Y tenerlo, ¿por qué sacarlo de la sección de economía? Porque el turismo es economía, indudablemente, y más en la República Dominicana. Pero también
una aclaración, perdón que interceda acá, pero es sacarlo, o sea, excluirlo al completo o ampliar la cobertura, la presencia.
Que sea transversal, porque aquí tenemos, por ejemplo...
O sea, no limitarlo a economía.
Por ejemplo, ayer ustedes gozaron muchísimo con los hermanos Rosario. Anoche gozaron muchísimo con los hermanos Rosario. Y nosotros tenemos muchísimas cosas. El espectáculo es uno de nuestros atractivos turísticos. El merengue, ahora la bachata, son atractivos de nosotros como país. Yo recuerdo que la primera vez que yo visité Taiwán, para yo explicarle a la gente de dónde yo era, tuve que decirle de Sammy Sosa Lam. O sea, la tierra de Sammy Sosa, un beisbolista. Entonces ahí la gente de una vez se ubicó en la República Dominicana porque nosotros no tenemos una zona turística en la República Dominicana. La República Dominicana es un destino turístico que tiene grandes marcas que se conocen, pero al final de la jornada es República Dominicana. Y toda la cobertura que nosotros hacemos incide de manera directa o indirecta en el turismo. Esa fue una política editorial que se comprendió perfectamente durante la pandemia. Sí. Ahí descubrió el productor de vegetales orientales de Jarabacoa, que los vegetales que producía allá en Jarabacoa, en la montaña, se consumían aquí en el sur, en el norte, en el este, en Punta Cana, en Bávaro, en toda esta zona. Ya la gente entendió realmente que el turismo era transversal y por eso el país se volcó a la apertura del país al turismo. Yo recuerdo que en mi condición de deportista también, montamos aquí en la zona la primera ventana de la FIBA, de la Federación Internacional de Baloncesto, del Mundial de Baloncesto. Lo montamos aquí para demostrarle al mundo que en plena pandemia se podía venir a la República Dominicana. Deporte aplicado a la promoción turística.
Absolutamente. Muchísimas gracias. Ahora bien, Aníbal, tú has visto las dos caras de la moneda. Migraste del mundo de los medios y ahora, obviamente, cercano a la OMT a partir de diplomacia. ¿Dónde está la dificultad? ¿Por qué tantos medios de comunicación, por un lado, e incluso, no sé si a nivel de toma de decisión política, no se percatan precisamente de algo que es tan de sentido común para nosotros por lo menos? La transversalidad del turismo, o que no hace falta ser un periodista especializado en turismo para escribir sobre turismo, como es el caso justamente que vimos en el Diario Libre del Día.
Te voy a responder la pregunta, Marcelo, con unas experiencias y prácticas. Algo de lo que me sorprende, ¿no?, en las diferentes actividades de la OMT en la que participo, es cuando los representantes de los países hablan de la necesidad de crear una conciencia sobre el turismo, sobre la importancia del turismo, lo que el turismo representa y crear pues esa afinidad con los temas, con la deontología del turismo que patrocina la OMT. En el caso de República Dominicana, el turismo no es solo una cuestión editorial, forma parte de la conversación nacional. O sea, a lo largo de los años, y yo soy el más viejo de los tres, yo he podido ver cómo se ha generado esa evolución, ese entendimiento, esa aprehensión del turismo en la República Dominicana. ¿Y qué ha pasado? Yo creo que lo hemos visto las ventajas del turismo en la práctica. No nos lo ha dicho nada, no ha sido una enseñanza pregonada ni mensaje lanzado por los medios, esa es la práctica. Y el mejor ejemplo es donde estamos, la provincia de la Altagracia. De ser una de las provincias más pobres del país, donde lo único que había era hatos ganaderos, se ha convertido probablemente en la provincia más rica de la República Dominicana. Pero al mismo tiempo ha sido un centro de migración de todas las regiones del país. O sea, que la provincia de la Altagracia, donde está Punta Cana, se ha convertido en una especie de epicentro de la República Dominicana. Y eso se ha logrado gracias al turismo. O sea, no hay que explicarle, no hay que adoctrinar a los dominicanos sobre la importancia del turismo, porque es una vivencia, es una realidad en la República Dominicana.
Inés, ¿cómo hacemos para que cuando se habla de sectores económicos de fuerza, la imagen que normalmente la ilustra no sean imágenes muy estereotipadas, llenas de testosterona, contenedores, líneas de montaje, ¿no? Personas sudando? El turismo nunca es asociado, no siempre, pero sí, no siempre es asociado realmente con vigor, ¿no?, con fortaleza en ese sentido. Equivocadamente, como bien sabemos. ¿Qué está fallando? Y ahora desde las entrañas, ¿verdad?, del periodismo se observan otros medios y otros enfoques editoriales. ¿Por qué se recurre? Por un lado, existe sí la conciencia de la transversalidad de nuestro sector, a mayor o menor medida, hablando, sabemos que existe, pero la manera de retratarlo siempre acaba siendo muy estereotipado, ¿no? Al turismo en la prensa se le sigue predominantemente, mayoritariamente, asociando con algo más frívolo. Y no quiero criticar lo frívolo para nada, si lo pasamos todo bien, ¿no? Pero cuando se habla de vigor, de fuerza económica, no se recurre a ello.
Hablábamos de cuáles serían las narrativas, ¿verdad? El
Sí,
panel ya hablaba de las
exactamente.
narrativas. Pero hay que pensar que el que primero cambió la narrativa es el propio turista o el propio viajero, o si podemos hacer esa distinción que a ti no te gusta y a mí
No
sí.
me gusta.
Exacto. O sea, antes ya nadie va a retratar las pirámides de Egipto. Se va a hacer un selfie delante de las pirámides de Egipto. Eso es un mensaje poderosísimo. Aquí el que importa soy yo. Lo más interesante soy yo, no son las pirámides. Entonces, la narrativa de ellos mismos, de sus propios viajes, nos dan pistas de hacia dónde podemos, como periódico o como medios, conectar. El lenguaje va a ser diferente. Incluso tú piensas en usuarios o piensas en lectores. Uno y otro necesitan un acercamiento del periodista diferente. El usuario será mucho más tecnológico, querrá consejos concretos y querrá verse él como centro de la experiencia. El viajero estará más abierto a ser parte de la experiencia de los otros y a intervenir como un invitado del sitio a donde va y de conocer. Y eso mismo les puede dar pistas a los de la industria del turismo de cómo manejar, porque ya la segmentación es tan grande que tú puedes hablar de grupos específicos a los que dirigirte específico. Si tú ves tendencias como la de que cada vez más mujeres viajan solas, pues tú puedes hacer muchísimas narrativas y muchísimas historias y muchísimos consejos que no tienen nada que ver para los que viajan en familia y quieren recuperar, que sus hijos sepan lo que era la naturaleza. A ti de pequeño te llevaban al campo, ¿verdad? Pues ahora es una experiencia que hay que compartir en otro entorno. El turismo, ¿cómo representarlo? Si representas a la playa, obviamente te van a venir todos los que quieren ir a la playa porque es una maravilla. Pero ya tienes que ir pensando en representarlo con experiencias. Ir a Machu Picchu, pero ir a cocinar algo en Machu Picchu. Ir a las pirámides, pero ver otra historia. Y verás que los viajeros también son totalmente diferentes a los turistas. Los viajeros tienen una literatura de viajes que no tiene nada que ver con las guías para el viajero. O sea, las narrativas son infinitas. También tienes que contar la personalidad de tu propio medio y ver cómo las otras generaciones se están integrando en una misma redacción, se están integrando y ya van trayendo ellos mismos las tecnologías que nuestros lectores a menudo van por delante. O sea, nosotros como medios podemos ser también un escenario de encuentro en donde los turistas se compartan información. Al final, creo que hay que repensar en función de lo que ellos quieren y de lo que ellos necesitan, y te lo están diciendo.
O sea, volvemos a lo que llevamos escuchando en la mañana, que es justamente colocar a la persona en el centro.
Es que se ha colocado ella, ¿eh?
Claro, claro, se ha colocado, pero lo hemos identificado. Lo que vale para el branding de Interbrand, lo que vimos antes con Meta y con Instagram, y también en la prensa general, precisamente. Si estuviésemos en un foro de medios, hablando con otros compañeros, representantes de medios de comunicación, obviamente dominicanos, pero en otras partes, donde los criterios editoriales, donde el turismo no tiene ese grado de presencia todavía, a pesar de que, vuelvo y repito, la pandemia, si algo demostró, es la relevancia del turismo y el alcance increíble del turismo. Otro ejemplo que se me ocurre de hace muchos años, muchos recordarán aquel volcán de nombre impronunciable, porque no hablo islandés, que estalló y que paralizó el espacio aéreo europeo durante una semana. Claro, noticia dura, difícil económicamente, a nivel personal, pero yo decía, desde el punto de vista de comunicación, y yo venía recién llegado a la OMT, nada mejor que un volcán islandés, ¿no?, para subrayar la importancia de nuestro sector que va más allá del turismo. Volviendo a lo que estamos hablando aquí, ¿cómo hacemos para posicionar justamente esa mayor relevancia editorial que tiene que tener el turismo, precisamente por su transversalidad? ¿Cómo sensibilizamos a otros medios, a otros comunicadores?
Lo primero es tener conciencia de lo que implica, primero de lo que es el turismo y de lo que implica para el país. Me gusta mucho utilizar la palabra transversal, lo usé ahorita y lo vuelvo a utilizar ahora. O sea, cuando decíamos que sacamos el tema turismo de la sección de economía, es porque todo nos lleva al turismo y la industria también tiene que entender lo que todo nos lleva al turismo. Por ejemplo, algo muy anecdótico, y es que el primer cronista turístico que visitó América, quizás yo le haga esa pregunta y me dará muchísimo nombre, fue Cristóbal Colón. En el diario de Colón decía la tierra más hermosa que ojos algunos hayan visto, o se refería, por ejemplo, a las playas de la República Dominicana como tan hermosas que eran, que no era posible describirla con palabras. Eso está en el diario de Cristóbal Colón, no es una guía turística, está en el diario de Cristóbal Colón, que tú lo buscas y tú vas a leer ahí por un asunto histórico, un asunto político, un asunto económico, tú lo vas a encontrar, pero te vas a encontrar que en ese diario estaban referencias que podemos decir como crónica turística. Entonces, es tener la conciencia de que todo nos habla de turismo o todo nos puede hablar del turismo. Entonces, sensibilizar, más que sensibilizar tanto a los medios como a los que están directamente con la industria turística, es entender que el turismo no es una actividad al margen de otra actividad. Yo no puedo decir, yo soy un periodista turístico. O sea, yo soy periodista y el trabajo que yo hago como periodista puede incidir positiva o negativamente en la industria turística. Volvemos otra vez a la pandemia y me voy al tiempo de la pandemia porque la pandemia nos abrió los ojos. El país se abrió, fue cuando se abrió al turismo, se abrió el país completo, se abrió los productores agropecuarios, se abrió al sector de transporte, se abrió al transporte aéreo, por supuesto, se abrió el país. Nosotros, por lo menos en la República Dominicana, que como isla que somos, el turismo es fundamental. Pero cuando yo como cronista político, para ponerlo de alguna manera, a mí no me gusta ponerle apellido al periodista, porque usted es periodista. Yo recuerdo que una de las cosas que me cambió radicalmente mi forma de escribir fue que yo empezando prácticamente, creo que por aquí está el ministro de Turismo de Guatemala, tú decías, me tocó Carmen Chubrusiló, una periodista, la primera periodista de viajes que ganó Premio Nacional de Periodismo. Carmen Chubrusiló me dio un consejo cuando yo fui, que nos invitaron para ver estaban abriendo creo que la ruta del Tikal, que yo empecé a escribir con los clásicos las 5 preguntas, las 5 W. Ella me devolvió el trabajo y me dijo, Monegro, el que te lee tiene que sentir que está allá. Eso fue una lección que la aprendí para el resto de la vida. Lección que la aplico cuando he tenido que hacer crónica de narcotráfico, que la he tenido que utilizar cuando tengo que hacer crónica política, que la uso cuando tengo que hacer algún trabajo político. Es llevar a la gente al lugar. Entonces, todo lo que nosotros hacemos en el periodismo, si no reunimos eso, estamos gachos. Entonces, sensibilizar a la prensa. Yo creo que la República Dominicana está conteste, yo hablo de República Dominicana, está conteste de lo transversal que es el turismo, de lo importante que es el turismo. Don Aníbal de Castro, que está aquí con nosotros, no quiero ponerlo viejo, pero pertenece a una escuela de directores maestros. Aníbal de Castro, Rafael Herrera, Orne, que son muy experimentados.
Son mayores que él.
Y todos son mayores que él, ¿no? Y están muertos, además. Pero todos tenían una conciencia clara de lo que representaba el turismo para la República Dominicana. Era a ellos que no los entendían. Era a ellos que no lo entendían los industriales, que los industriales no entendían, hoy lo entienden, de que el turismo es una industria y que es su principal aliado. Hoy lo entienden perfectamente. El sector agropecuario hoy lo entiende perfectamente. El sector político hoy lo entiende perfectamente. Nosotros tenemos como ministro de Turismo a un político jovencito, bastante joven, pero político consagrado, y él ha entendido cómo se hace política pública desde el sector turístico. O sea, los medios ya están sensibilizados. Los que han estado involucrados en la actividad turística, como la conocíamos clásicamente, han estado sensibilizados. Y la pandemia obligó a que todo el resto del país se sensibilizara en torno al tema.
Señor decano. Decano, ¿nos ponemos de acuerdo? ¿Es el decano?
Excelente.
¿Qué hacer justamente con esta perspectiva, ¿no?, de gran trayectoria y de estar, tener conocimiento de ambos lados? Por un lado, obviamente, la parte editorial periodística, la diplomacia y estar tan cerca a la Organización Mundial del Turismo con su mandato que tiene, obviamente, ¿no? Promocionamos, pero no promocionamos con un objetivo que es el desarrollo, ¿no?, y nuestro ADN de Naciones Unidas. ¿Qué hacer para no perder esta ventana de oportunidad que la mencionamos recién, que supuso la pandemia para el sector? Porque con todas las ventanas se acaban cerrando. ¿Qué hacer para no perder este momento?
Sí, por supuesto que hay una relación muy estrecha entre turismo y diplomacia, porque nosotros los diplomáticos en gran medida lo que hacemos continuamente es vender el país, proyectar una imagen positiva, defender los intereses nacionales y por supuesto eso pasa por una promoción del turismo. Antes que nada, yo creo que para uno preservar lo que tiene que ser transparente, tiene que ser honesto y no tratar de forzar una imagen que no se corresponda con lo que es. Y también debe de cuidar la imagen que se proyecta en los medios de comunicación, no solamente acá en República Dominicana, que para el caso sería lo menos importante, sino sobre todo en el exterior, Y yo voy con el permiso tuyo, Marcelo, a torcer un poco el significado editorial para traer sobre la mesa otro medio de comunicación que yo creo que es muy eficaz, es un instrumento de primer orden para la promoción turística y para la creación de un branding de un país, y es el cine. Hace 3 días yo iba conduciendo en Santo Domingo y oí a alguien en uno de esos programas de radio que decía que la República Dominicana se ha convertido en uno de los 10 países del mundo más atractivos para filmar. Y era un detalle que yo no conocía, ¿no?, con esa exactitud. Y me puse a buscar un poco sobre el cine y la República Dominicana. Y resulta que películas que figuran de una manera protagónica en mi memoria del cine, mi interés por el cine, filmaron escenas en República Dominicana y yo no lo sabía. Es el caso de una escena impresionante en la película Apocalipsis Now, cuando hay el desembarco en los helicópteros y con la música de Wagner de las Valquirias y está este militar. Eso se filmó en República Dominicana. Parte de ese recorrido del barco, se supone que en Vietnam, es el río Chabón en República Dominicana. Y yo recordaba que ciertamente en los orígenes del desarrollo del turismo en República Dominicana figuraba el cine de una manera hasta cierto punto indirecta. ¿Por qué? Porque el principal resort en ese entonces, Casa de Campo, era propiedad de la Gulf and Western, que al mismo tiempo era la dueña de Paramount Pictures. Y no es casual que escenas de la película El Padrino se filmaran en la República Dominicana. Y no es casual tampoco que Francis Ford Coppola, que era el director del Padrino y también el director de Apocalipsis Now, volviera a la República Dominicana a filmar. Tenemos un estudio que es un dechado de nueva tecnología, estudio de sociedad con Pinewood de Inglaterra. Se está trabajando en otro estudio que con el actor Vin Diesel, que sería en el norte, en Puerto Plata. O sea que la República Dominicana tiene la oportunidad de presentar una narrativa hasta cierto punto nueva. Pero también gira alrededor del branding, porque el branding, decíamos, escuchamos esta mañana, alrededor de la gente. Pero ¿qué es más cercano a la gente que el cine? ¿Qué es más humano que las emociones? ¿Qué es lo que despierta el cine? ¿Qué es lo que lleva el cine? Son emociones, son emociones. Ojo, tenemos que tener cuidado, porque recuerdo perfectamente la primera vez que yo viajé a Europa, la película de Sound of Music tenía 10 años. Yo tomé un tour de eso que si es martes debe ser jueves, si es martes debe ser Bélgica, no, qué sé yo, cuántos países en 21 días en un autobús. Y el único latino era yo, todos eran norteamericanos y canadienses. Y las expectativas eran ir a Salzburgo. ¿Por qué? Por la película The Sound of Music. Visitar los lugares donde fue filmada. Pero ahora, pensando sobre este panel, vuelvo y busco la película The Sound of Music. Todavía tiene una importancia en el turismo. Todos los años hay un festival en Salzburgo sobre la música y la película de Sound of Music. Pero Casablanca, por ejemplo, Casablanca, la película se hizo antes de que yo naciera, y Casablanca indefectiblemente está relacionada con esa ciudad. Pero hay una advertencia también, la advertencia de otra película de 1978, Midnight Express. Midnight Express, creo que Viajero de Medianoche se llamó en español. Y si uno va a ChatGPT, dicen que todavía es parte del debate en lo que tiene que ver con el turismo y con la imagen que se creó sobre Turquía. O sea, que el lado positivo y el lado negativo. Y es lo que tenemos que cuidar para preservar lo que ya hemos ganado.
Yo creo que podríamos hacer una conferencia solamente con este tema, igual que lo hicimos con el tema del bloque anterior y el primero, seguramente que el siguiente. También yo rescato acá, hablabas de las 5 Ws, las 5 Ws o Ws. Yo acá veo las 3 Ts, transparencia informativa, ¿no? Transversalidad del sector, ¿no? Su huella, su cadena de valor económica más amplia y huella social más profunda, y también trascender los compartimentos tradicionales de cómo se aborda, ¿no?, el turismo, ¿no? Puede ser un redactor de economía, aunque no le gusten los apellidos, y lo comparto, o bien alguien de medio ambiente. Decías que no me gusta a mí la distinción entre viajero y turista, pero ahí vuelvo a lo economicista. ¿Por qué? Porque a nivel de impacto económico, los servicios y lo que consume acaba siendo lo mismo. Da igual si lleva una mochila, como Pedro Zarzalejos cuando viajaba por América Latina, o que lleve una maleta Samsonite.
Es una cuestión de actitud, no es una cuestión de forma. Es una cuestión de que el viajero mira más y el turista se divierte más él. Te lo digo porque incluso los
Depende de las películas que vea y de las emociones que le despierte.
Yo ahora que recibo muchos jóvenes invitados, tanto de España y de Estados Unidos, amigos, sobrinos y todo esto, ellos quieren que yo les vea como un viajero que viene a conocer República Dominicana, más como un turista fiestero. A eso voy, no tanto lo de la mochila y la maleta y el hotel y el Airbnb.
Son opciones, claro.
Es actitud ante el otro, no...
No obstante, lo que sí destilo de todo esto es que volvemos a hablar una y otra vez más de la persona. Todo lo demás llega después. Me encanta que hables de Pinewood. Mi hermano viene a partir de fines de agosto aquí a trabajar con Pinewood unos meses a hacer una serie. Así que nada. Muchísimas gracias por participar. Y gracias por su tiempo, que siempre hay que agradecerlo. Como decía, and I'm switching back to English, if you allow, we're going from macro to micro. We started really with a big framework of branding, rebranding, and how it has evolved over time, and the collaboration also with you and WTO. We then went on, of course, to how technology is helping the narrative and how itself it has evolved, and of course through the undisputed world leader in this area, Instagram Meta, and how they have embraced tourism and why they have embraced tourism and where they see tourism evolving. And of course, the contrast with how media is portraying and identifying what's relevant and how to position tourism editorially. The connecting thread, as we have found out, is people. And talking about people, we mentioned the creators before. Let's see if what these creators have to share with us really coincides with what we have established until now. So please, a warm welcome to our two creators who have been traveling throughout the Dominican Republic over the past days. Por favor, un aplauso para que se animen a subir aquí con nosotros y a preguntar, what's the story? Creo que esta silla sobra. Chloe and Marion. I'm checking this if you like. Yes. Yeah, no worries. I have a mic. So we spread a bit, exactly. Se acaba de sumar la ministra de Turismo de Brasil. Only for information, this is the Minister of Tourism from Brazil who's joining us as well. So we're happy for that addition as we wrap this up with the final segment. Thank you very much. So, of course, we had before Sharon from Meta describing from Instagram what a creator is, but in your own words, what's that, a creator? What do you create? What do you do?
Well, as Sharon said, we're all creators. So I'm not different than you guys. I use Instagram to post stories, photos, reels, videos, but I'm doing it full time. So I'm doing it as my job. And that's maybe the main difference. I studied journalism, never worked as a journalist, worked in marketing, quit my job, became a full-time travel blogger and creator in 2016. When I quit my job, I thought, well, let's try this. Worst case, I'll have to find another job. And here I am 7 years later and still pursuing this full-time, so it does work. If you want to know why, ask me after, but it does.
Does the same description fit to you, or what do you do? Yeah. How do you explain people what a creator is, and also reminding what Sharon shared before with the minister and with the other delegates in terms of look at creators and even at their profile, less than on just blunt statistics.
Yeah, I would say the same thing as Marion. And for me, it would be also to share my vision and my experiences of my daily life, because I travel a lot, but also where I live and the place I live, and share the places I discover and my vision of it. And I think it's what makes it interesting to share content.
How long have you been doing this? We heard from around 6 years. 2016, you started working on this, so you've seen also the huge changes over the past years, because it wasn't the same being a creator. I don't know if the term even existed as such in 2016 as it is now. And you have been...
I've been full-time 2 years.
2 years
2 years.
only.
I started as a hobby, and I was seeing it was working well, and then I...
So you also embraced tourism and tourism creation in the middle of the pandemic?
Yeah. Before the pandemic as a hobby, and then when I moved to Mallorca, it's like I found my niche, and I keep sharing my daily experiences in Mallorca, and this is when I started to do it full time.
Okay, now, before we established putting people at the center, we went again, and I repeat myself, from macro to micro. First, the new rebranding approach that we're pursuing with UNWTO, thanks with of the support by Interbrand, putting people at the center. They themselves said that this is how brand perception is changing, validated by Meta and Instagram, and also by leading media outlets in the Dominican Republic. Are they right? Yes? Can you validate them? Do you confirm this? So what makes you tick? What really is a good story for you?
I think everything that has been said kind of reflects on what we do as well. So we do, as Chloe said, we operate in our niche. So it's very important for us to find stories that fit to our niche. So please do not invite me to a family resort. I don't have children. That would not work for me. I cover stories that are about female empowerment, wildlife conservation. That's the stories that I'm interested in. Then what Michael Collins said about giving us time at the destination to research, to create our content, that is very imperative. And then last but not least, I want to throw a word out here, which I don't know if you've heard before, but it's called co-creation. So do not sit in like a tiny boardroom and create your strategies around influencers and then go out and ask us if we want to join. But bring us to the table. Bring us into that room and co-create those campaigns together with us, because then you'll have the best outcome. Because we know our niches best, we know our audiences best, we know the stories that reflect best. So please use that knowledge that we have in our, again, very specific niches.
What's your approach? How do you create? What do you do? Transmit it. What do you need? And how can your work how do they make your work easy in terms of really getting out the stories and identifying the interesting contents? If you were to work, for instance, with the ministry or with the DMO.
For me, the best approach is taking a destination that it's known, for instance, with Dominican Republic. When you think of it, you can think of palm trees, white beaches, but what I loved about this itinerary is that we discovered the other side of the country, and for me that is a good story. It's discovering lesser-known places and sharing stories. For instance, we met incredible people with incredible stories, and for me that is good content.
Maybe we want to show a few examples from what we saw during our pre-trip. So maybe, Alba, you can pull up the Chocolala. Oh, that's Alfa Laval. Oh, my God. You notice I don't speak Spanish. I think it's Alfa Val.
Let's not fast forward that. Let's go back to the first image, please. I would like them just to explain briefly what we're seeing here. And just a reminder for the audience. We arranged, with the support of the Ministry of Tourism, a brief, but I think very intense itinerary ahead of the council. The idea was to broaden again the narrative around what's there. Not that, of course, that Punta Cana and the beautiful places that many people know around the world should not be promoted, but there must be more to the Dominican Republic than what comes to your mind immediately. There are other stories. Okay, so this was the idea, and hear from you, WTO, now a big thank you, of course, to the Vice Minister Carlos Peguero, who was instrumental in setting this up, and his great team, and the generosity again of the host, and really the open-mindedness in terms of really incorporating this focus for this exercise. And again, this comes fresh out of the oven, but I'd like you, yes, to explain a bit more, very concretely, but think really in social media terms, talking headlines and concrete takeaways for the audience. What are they witnessing here, and why is it interesting? And what is the relationship with tourism?
Yeah, good question. So you said we are broadening the story, but I think we're also deepening the stories. It's going in depth and really, not just meeting people, but getting to know their backgrounds, getting to know their struggles, and also their solutions. How are they working to kind of alleviate those struggles that they have? And Chocolala is a great example. It's a female-led chocolate cooperative, so they produce cacao. And I realized that most tourists that come here to Punta Cana are not going to go there. We sat in a bus for like 6 hours to get there. It's a long trip. It was very worth it for us because it's a very interesting story. But I believe these stories need to be brought here as well. So we need to find ways to bring Chocolala to Punta Cana, to the resorts, have cacao ceremonies, make it meaningful, interesting, but connected to what your destination is really about. And I think there's great potential I mean, they're selling their products at supermarkets now, so they're becoming bigger and bigger, but it needs to be connected to tourism better.
What else? What other examples can you show us? Do we have more? Fire away.
Yeah, it's also my photo, but it's fine. That's another example of a cooperative doing weaving work out of banana leaves. So something that I didn't know before. Of course, we know the Dominican is a great exporter of bananas, but this is something that adds value and creates local value because they are using a byproduct of the banana production and creating these beautiful weaving products like the hats, and they have bags and all sorts of nice things. I'm actually not sure. I didn't check out the boutique. Maybe they have stuff like this here, but that's something that can be easily connected to a tourism offer. And you can have weaving workshops where you have tourists, actually doing it. We didn't have time, unfortunately. We had like 10 minutes there, but I would have loved to learn how to weave myself.
And what I loved about this itinerary is that they... So this was Hacienda Cufa, another local business we discovered during the trip. And for us, it was really the opportunity to give voice and to give visibility to causes and individuals that we met during the trip.
So would you say this is tourism? Or is this agriculture, as we see from the images? Or is this, we heard women empowerment, so is this gender issues? What are you covering?
I think it's a mix of everything, and I think tourism now cannot be just tourism. It has to be linked to other things, and like we see on this trip, I think it's the future of tourism.
I agree. I think these kinds of exploitative means of tourism, where you go and, no offense, pet dolphins that are caged somewhere, something I would never do in my life. This is the new kind of tourism. This is more meaningful, this is more empowering, this connects to gender equality, this connects to development, social, economic development in the community. So this is kind of what I think a new generation of tourists are really looking for.
But we don't want to, do you think, wouldn't this risk be the risk politicizing how you portray tourism?
Is it a risk? I think it's an opportunity. I think it needs to be politicized. We need to become more aware of what we do when we travel, how we impact the destinations we go to, what does it do to the communities, to the nature, environment, etc., etc. So we have to become more aware of our choices.
Claire, you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And I think it doesn't have to be everything or nothing. We can just start adding a little bit of meaningfulness and things like that, and that would be the future of tourism for me.
I would love to contradict.
Go ahead.
No, I think what we've seen here, again, is an approach. And we're talking about templates. And I reiterated like a mantra. We saw the evolution of branding through time. We saw the evolution of tech and visual communications over recent years and how tourism has been really put on that agenda. We've seen how the media has evolved and how tourism is positioned editorially. And then, of course, your examples and of course, really kudos for the awareness and the engagement. But then again, we cannot dictate if there is like a first and a second class tourism, right? That's why I don't agree, for instance, with the term tourist and traveler, because I think it creates two categories. It's snobbish even, okay? And it's my choice as a consumer to decide what kind of tourism experience I'm inclined to. I might go for this option A or this option B. But it depends. I think it depends much more, and this is why I don't know, the macroeconomic impact and the social footprint and the environmental and cultural footprint don't make a distinction. It depends how it's managed. This is what we try to, at least the approach from UNWTO.
I understand
right?
that,
In
but
terms of you can be sustainable even if you have a Samsonite suitcase and not necessarily a Patagonia backpack.
I agree 100% with that sentiment, but the option A or B is where I have problems, because if we offer option A and it is caging dolphins somewhere to have them being pet by tourists, that is exploitative, that is animal abuse, it's a problem. So why not eliminate option A? That means we might lose some tourists who need to be, as I think, educated as well. So there is not a distinction between tourist and traveler, but there is maybe a distinction between a bit more educated and not so educated. But I think if people are aware of what kind of impact they create, if it means that our dolphins being abused, they wouldn't go for it. But if it's being promoted with beautiful images of dolphins and nice selfies, of course they'll go for it. It's a very concrete example, of course. You see I'm passionate about this, but we actually booked a catamaran tour this afternoon, and I said specifically, we're not going to the dolphins. I don't want to do that. And I think, this is my choice, but we have to, as a tourism operator, kind of decide what kind of choices do we offer.
Chloe,
I think it's more about awareness, and as content creators, we have a significant impact on the travel decision making, especially for younger generations. So I think it's good to raise awareness, and then it's their own choice, but at least we talk about it.
How old are you?
I'm 28.
How old are you?
How indiscreet, I'm 40.
Fine. I'm 56. So the question is then, do you see this resonating with both your age, brackets, in terms of the people who follow you, the people who engage with you? Do they demand? And I'm talking now, really, let's leave the politics outside of this room, but really in terms of the consumer inclination, preference. Is this where you see things going?
Yeah, I think there are different angles, but for instance, I see that people want to know off the beaten path places and lesser known places, and it's also a way to support local economy, local businesses, so I think it goes in that way.
So you want to take an Airbus, a big Airbus with 300 passengers, okay, to go to an international airport, and then there to go off the beaten path. So you want to go, yes? With all the other people, right? With all the people going to see the dolphins, and then you go off the beaten path. This is how it works?
No.
I mean, we're operating in a bubble. Both of us, we're operating in a small bubble. Obviously, we speak for what we see and what we experience. My bubble definitely goes into what Chloe is describing. They want off the beaten path, they want authentic experiences, they don't want animal abuse, they want female-empowered cooperatives, they're interested in that. But it's a very small segment. And I think Sharon tapped into that we have to work with creators in specific niches, tap into those audiences with the right offers. But then, as a general trend, I do see this craving for authenticity. And Instagram also described it, also show the not-so-perfect moments. It's not just this striving for the one image of the great drone shot of the beach, but the more nitty-gritty stuff of it. And that's what makes it real and makes it approachable, and that's what people want.
Yeah, I think we can see with the social media trends nowadays, it's more about authenticity and lesser known places. And before it wasn't the case. Before it was only inspiring content, only beautiful scenery, and now it's more about authentic scenes. So I see it's changing a lot.
God, it sounds a lot like See the World Through My Eyes. I don't know why, but it resembles. I think you're onto something. Do we have any questions, any comments from the audience? It's now or never.
You want to go for lunch?
We want to go for lunch. We made up for time. So on behalf of UNWTO, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Thank you for the trip. Thank you for the commitment and the conviction. Thank you, everybody who took part. And as I said, we have many temptations not to be here just outside the door, but okay. We were here a few hours. I think it was very interesting. And again, I think we're onto something. People are at the center, no matter what perspective and even what political convictions we have. They are center, they are front, and they need to be also be involved as an the active ingredient, so to speak, in how we approach tourism, how we make it more meaningful, more relevant, more engaging, and then you choose A, B, C, D, up to Z. So thank you very much. Muchas gracias a todos. Gracias por la paciencia, la participación y el haber estado aquí presentes y siguiendo esta sesión. Muchísimas gracias y feliz final de estadía aquí en Punta Cana, y gracias una vez más también al Ministerio y a los compañeros de República Dominicana por acogernos a la OMT, nuestro Consejo Ejecutivo, y todos los que están allí detrás que hacen el trabajo invisible, desde los intérpretes hasta los técnicos que tuvieron que ayudarnos. Muchas gracias.
Hola muchachos, ¿cómo están? Lo prometido es deuda. Aquí te traigo lo que fue mi participación en el evento del Foro Internacional de Excel del domingo 9 de agosto. Mi ponencia fue acerca de trucos avanzados en gráficos. Son 5 ejercicios súper interesantes que no te puedes perder, con muchos tipsitos y muchos truquitos que definitivamente van a cambiar tu manera de hacer gráficos en Excel. Así que recuerda, por favor, si te gusta lo que fue mi ponencia, no te olvides de darle me gusta y comentar cuál fue el ejercicio o el truquito que más te gustó. Así que vamos a ver. Buenos días, gracias por la presentación. Gracias a Dios primero por esta oportunidad que tenemos todos acá, nosotros, de poder compartirles un poquito de lo que sabemos, y bueno, buenísimo que van a poder aprender un poco sobre nosotros, sobre lo que hacemos. Y bueno, muchachos, gracias también a las personas, a los chicos de COFTA por la invitación, a Iberocanto. Pues sí, ahorita vamos a estar viendo todo referente a gráficos, ¿verdad? Vamos a hacer truquitos sobre gráficos avanzados. En teoría deberíamos tener por lo menos un nivel intermedio para poder comprender lo que voy a decir, porque son trucos un poquito más avanzados. ¿Qué es lo primero que nosotros vamos a hacer? Yo quiero, en este gráfico que tenemos acá, les muestro cuál es nuestra basecita de datos. Es un resumen de ventas de nuestras sucursales, en este caso las sucursales de Panamá, de ese restaurante, de una cadena de restaurantes. Entonces aquí están los diferentes productos o los diferentes platos. Bueno, cuánto se vendió en lasaña, cuánto en bistec, cuánto en pollo frito, milanesa de pollo, etcétera, ¿no? Ok. ¿Qué pasa? Mi objetivo es graficar algo como esto. Este es el gráfico al que quiero llegar. Es decir, que yo pueda ver como columnas apiladas cuál fue la sucursal que más vendió. En este caso podemos ver que fue Costa del Este, pero yo no lo quiero ver simplemente como una gráfica de columna, porque sí, está bien, aquí me van a salir las sucursales y me va a salir, sí, lo que se vendió en cada una, pero no me dice, como esta, que me dice cuánto se vendió por cada plato, y por supuesto el tamaño de la altura es pues lo que se vendió en cada plato, ¿no? Ok, vamos a hacer algo. Vamos entonces a irnos a nuestro ejercicio. ¿Qué pasa si yo, por ejemplo, hago así, ¿no? Sin el total, ¿no? Pongo ficha insertar, voy a mi grafiquito de columnas, no voy a hacer porque no lo quiero así uno al lado del otro, por lo tanto el gráfico que realmente estoy necesitando es el de apiladas, ¿ok? Que muy poca gente realmente lo usan siempre es pero es muy bueno cuando quieres saber los totales, ¿ok? Y además tienes de los dos mundos, porque también puedes ver cuánto vendiste por producto. Ok, fíjense qué sucede, ¿no? Vamos a colocarle un estilo diferente al gráfico, donde tú puedes ver ahora cuánto se vendió también en número, ¿no? Pero Esta es una pregunta que siempre me hacen. Oye, pero sería ideal que pudiera salir el total, ¿no? O sea, el total de lo que se envió en cada sucursal. Bueno, miren lo que vamos a hacer. Yo voy a agarrar y voy a colocarle aquí, fíjense que cuando yo selecciono el gráfico, yo puedo incluir esta columna muy fácil. Simplemente cuando está en la esquinita, lo arrastro para acá. Esto solo con el propósito de que ahora me agarre y me grafique la columna del total por sucursal. Muy bien. Como ven, ella está entendiendo que esa nueva columna, esa nueva serie, es un nuevo plato, cosa que no es así. Ya lo vamos a cambiar. ¿Dónde lo hacemos? Seleccionamos el gráfico, ¿ok? Para que me pueda salir la ficha de diseño de gráfico. Y luego le voy a dar a cambiar tipo de gráfico. Esto también lo puedes hacer por acá. Simplemente le das clic derecho a alguna de las series y luego le vas a dar cambiar tipo de gráfico, ¿ok? Entonces, cuando tú le das allí, ella abre este menucito que está acá. Fíjate qué interesante. Aquí están todas las series, que en mi caso son los platos, ¿verdad? Y entonces está lasaña, el tipo de gráfico es columnas apiladas, correcto. Viste de cinta también, pollo frito, milanesa. Perfecto, muy bien. Entonces, les comentaba, muchachos, que tenemos las diferentes series. Aquí tenemos la serie de los platos, de lasaña, viste de cinta, pollo frito. Todas dicen tipo de gráfico, columna apilada. Pero fíjense quién está acá. La serie de total. Oye, yo no quiero que sean columnas apiladas. Miren lo que voy a hacer. Líneas. Se fijaron que ahora ya no forma parte de la columna, sino que ahora es un tipo de gráfico completamente diferente. Muy bien, vamos a darle a aceptar a ver qué continúa. Muy bien, ya como les comenté, no está como parte de la columna. Ahora miren lo que voy a hacer. Yo voy a seleccionarla, ¿verdad? La serie. Fíjense que aquí en el medio, lo que pasa es que está en blanco el color de la fuente, están las etiquetas de datos de esa serie, es decir, del total. Vamos a venirnos un momentico a la ficha inicio, le vamos a poner un color negro, vamos a ponerlo quizás un poquito más grande, en negrita, y para que no esté como sobrepuesto en la columna, vamos a darle clic derecho, ya teniendo seleccionadas las etiquetas, y le vamos a dar a formato de etiquetas, ¿ok? Fíjense que ya aquí, en este icono, te dice posición de la etiqueta. La quieres en el centro, la quieres a la izquierda, la que queremos es encima, para que esté un poquito más por arriba. Ok, perfecto, pero esa línea horrible yo no la quiero, ¿verdad? No pasa nada, yo la selecciono, me puedo venir a la latica de pintura y decirle sin línea. ¿Ves? Le doy sin línea y listo. Aquí estamos con nuestras columnas apiladas por platos y además puedo ver el total de lo que se vendió por sucursal. ¿Ok? Así que, bien, bueno, vamos entonces para que puedan ver el siguiente ejercicio. Fíjense, a mí me encanta este ejercicio porque es como que si ustedes estuviesen aplicando un formato condicional a un gráfico, ¿sí? Es como si estuviesen aplicando un formato condicional, pero al gráfico. No existe realmente esa herramienta de aplicarle un formato condicional a un gráfico, no existe eso. Pero sí se puede hacer a través de un par de truquitos, ¿verdad? Miren una cosa, si yo aplicara un formato condicional a la tabla, es más, les explico primero de qué se trata la tabla. Estos son los diferentes almacenes que tiene esa empresa en los diferentes países. Esta columna me indica a mí el tiempo de entrega actual del producto que tienen en cada sucursal. Y esto que está acá es el tiempo límite que tiene la empresa. O sea, ninguna sucursal debería estar pasando de 7 días de entrega del producto. Entonces, miren qué interesante. Fíjense que como las sucursales que están pasándose, se están excediendo del límite, se están poniendo en rojo. Y no es que yo vengo,
Carolina.
selecciono la barra. ¿Sí, te escucho?
Claro. ¿Puedes dar un poco más lento, por favor?
Voy un poquito más lento, un poquito más lento. Claro, no hay problema. Voy un poquito más lento, muchachos. Entonces, les comentaba. Esto que vamos a hacer aquí es como un formato condicional aplicado a los gráficos. No existe realmente un formato condicional que diga, ay, aplicar para gráficos. No existe eso. Pero miren lo que vamos a hacer. les comentaba que cuando la sucursal está excediendo del límite, por ejemplo, Bogotá, por ejemplo, Chile, se está poniendo en rojo la barra y no es que yo vengo y entonces selecciono la barra y me vengo acá y le digo, ay, ahora es rojo, que se puede hacer, pero la idea es hacerlo automático, ¿verdad? Que ella solita vaya cambiando si se excede. Por ejemplo, fíjense, ay, ahora el tiempo límite de entrega no son 7 días, son 6. ¿Vieron qué interesante? ¿Cómo entonces ahora Caracas se está excediendo del límite? Porque ya tiene 7 días, ¿ok? Vamos a regresar otra vez a 7 días y vamos a hacerlo al revés. Vamos a suponer que Panamá ya cambió, ya no tiene 5 días, ahora son 8 días. ¡Ay! Se puso rojo, ¿lo ven? Y se puso automáticamente. Lo que es lo mismo que yo pueda hacer